Moving into a new home is supposed to be exciting. A fresh start, a peaceful environment, and a place to finally call your own. At least that's what I thought. Until Karen happened. I had barely unpacked when I realized something was off about this neighborhood. The air felt a little too controlled. The lawns a little too perfect. The kind of place where people peek through their blinds and take notes. And sure enough, on day one, before I even had time to enjoy my first morning coffee, I found a letter taped to my front door. The first strike, HOA violation. I pulled the paper off the door and read, HOA notice, immediate action required. Your outdoor furniture does not meet HOA guidelines. Please remove the chairs from your front porch immediately. To avoid penalties, I frowned, looking over at my simple wooden rocking chairs, the same ones I had owned for years. Seriously, I'd seen plenty of houses with porch furniture when I drove through the neighborhood, so this wasn't about the rules. This was about control. And then I saw the signature at the bottom, Karen Reynolds, head of HOA compliance. I sighed. I didn't even know who Karen was yet, but I already knew her type. Meet Karen, the queen of petty power. Not. Long after, I heard the sharp click of heels on pavement. I looked up to see a middle-aged woman marching toward me, dressed in a crisp pastel, blues and beige slacks, holding a clipboard like it was a weapon. Good morning, she called out in a tone dripping with fake sweetness. I assume you got my notice? I raised an eyebrow. You must be Karen. Her smile stiffened, but she recovered quickly. I just wanted to personally welcome you. We have high standards in this community, and I like to make sure everyone is fully aware of the rules. I gestured toward my perfectly normal porch chairs. Is this really a problem? She tilted her head, giving me that condescending look people give when they think they're talking to someone beneath them. Unfortunately, she said with mock sympathy, those particular chairs don't meet HOA regulations. We like to keep things uniform here. Tenants need to follow the rules. You understand? That's when I realized. She thought I was a renter. I almost laughed. Instead, I crossed my arms. And what happens if I don't remove them? Her fake smile widened. Oh dear, that wouldn't be wise. You see, the HOA has the authority to issue fines, and if necessary, evict non-compliant tenants. She said it slowly, as if she were giving me a warning, but she had no idea who she was talking to. The truth comes out, I leaned against my porch railing, letting her enjoy her moment of superiority before dropping the bomb. That's interesting, I said casually. Because I'm not a tenant. Karen blinked. I smiled. I own this house. The color drained from her face. For a split second, she couldn't hide her shock. It was the look of someone whose entire plan just crumbled. But then she recovered fast. Her fake smile snapped back into place as she let out an awkward chuckle. Oh, well, that's wonderful. We love to see new homeowners taking an interest in our community. I smirked. Yeah, I bet you do. She cleared her throat, gripping her clipboard tighter. Well, in that case, I'm sure you'll want to be extra mindful of our HOA policies. I'll send over the full handbook later today. And with that, she turned on her heel and strutted away, leaving behind the clear message, this isn't over, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Karen didn't take embarrassment well. After our first encounter, I could tell she was seething inside, desperate to reassert her power. And sure enough, within days, I started receiving a barrage of HOA violation notices. At first, I thought it was a joke. The fake violations begin. The first letter arrived 2 days later, HOA violation notice, immediate action required. Your porch light exceeds brightness limits set by HOA safety regulations. Please replace it with an approved model immediately. I glanced at my porch light. A standard LED bulb, the exact same type as my neighbor's. Yeah, okay. The next day, another letter. Your trash bin placement is improper and must be moved exactly 2 feet closer to the curb. The day after that, Your vehicle has been reported for illegal parking. Illegal parking in my own driveway. It was obvious what was happening. Karen wasn't just trying to enforce rules, she was making them up. Karen's biggest mistake. What Karen didn't know was that I had a secret weapon. See, before moving here, I had done my homework. This wasn't just my house. I also happened to own multiple properties in the neighborhood, not as a landlord, just as long-term investments, which meant I wasn't just some random homeowner. I was one of the largest property owners in the HOA, and at the next HOA meeting, Karen was about to learn that the hard way, the HOA meeting showdown. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse, a fancy way of saying a bland conference room with folding chairs. When I arrived, Karen was already there, seated at the head of the table, clipboard in hand, radiating smugness. The second I walked in, her smile widened. "Oh, perfect, you made it," she said sweetly. "We have serious concerns to discuss regarding your ongoing violations." I smirked. "You mean the ones you made up?" A few board members exchanged glances, whispers. Clearly, Karen hadn't told them everything. Karen cleared her throat. Now, let's keep this professional." Then she flipped through her papers, pulling out a set of printed photos. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced dramatically, turning the papers around for everyone to see, "this homeowner has repeatedly ignored HOA rules. And here's the proof." She slapped a grainy, badly edited photo onto the table. I looked closer and nearly laughed. It was a Photoshop disaster. The image showed a car parked across the sidewalk, except it was clearly not mine. The shadows were all wrong. The proportions didn't match, and there was an awkward blur where she had tried to paste my license plate onto the vehicle. It was so bad that one of the board members actually squinted and said, "That doesn't look right." Karen plowed ahead anyway. "And here's another violation," she continued, holding up another terrible edit, this time of my trash bin supposedly blocking the street. Problem? She'd forgotten to remove the date stamp in the corner, which showed it was taken 5 years ago. By now, murmurs were spreading across the room. "Karen, where did you get these?" one board member asked suspiciously. Karen bristled. "From anonymous sources. We take community complaints very seriously," I smiled. "You mean you took these yourself and doctored them to make me look bad?" A beat of silence. A couple of board members looked at each other, eyebrows raised. Karen's face twitched. "That's ridiculous. I cut her off. Actually, let's clear this up," I said casually, pulling out my phone. "And then?" I tapped the screen and projected my live security camera feed onto the clubhouse TV. The ultimate power move. The room went dead silent as footage played, my trash bins neatly placed exactly where the HOA guidelines required. My car parked perfectly in my driveway, no obstructions, and the best part, a time-lapse showing Karen herself sneaking around my property taking photos. The whispers turned into full-blown muttering. One board member shook his head. "Karen, what is this?" Karen turned red. I leaned forward, enjoying every second of her meltdown. "You tried to frame me," I said, my voice calm. "You faked violations, lied to the HOA, and wasted everyone's time." I let the words sink in. Then I dropped the final blow. "And just so we're clear, I own 5 properties in this HOA. Which means I have more voting power than almost everyone here." Karen's mouth fell open. The board members sat up a little straighter. "Oh," one of them said. "Well, that changes things." The final blow, I smiled. "So, how about we stop wasting time on fake violations and start discussing real issues in this community?" The board members nodded. "Karen," she sat there, humiliated, gripping her clipboard like a lifeline. For the first time, she had nothing to say. But I knew one thing for sure. She wasn't done. She was just getting started. And this fight, it was about to get personal. Karen thought she had all the power. She tried to drown me in fake violations, manipulated photos, and HOA politics. But what she didn't realize, I had done my homework. And tonight, at this HOA meeting, it was her turn to be on trial. Flipping the script after, I completely dismantled Karen's fake accusations with security footage. The room was already turning against her. But I wasn't done. I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. Since we're discussing rule violations, then I pulled out a stack of papers. Let's talk about your violations, Karen. She froze. The violations begin. Flipped to the first page and held it up for everyone to see. 1. Illegal garbage disposal. Karen has been violating HOA trash policies for months, leaving her bins out for days after collection, despite repeated warnings. I clicked on the projector and played video footage, Karen dragging her trash out. 3 days late while writing fake fines for other homeowners. A couple of board members raised their eyebrows. "Karen," one of them said, crossing their arms. "Is this true?" She fumbled. "Well, sometimes people forget." I flipped the page. Illegal parking. Karen has repeatedly parked her second vehicle in an unauthorized location, blocking access to the fire lane. More photos, multiple dates. The room muttered. "That's a safety hazard," someone whispered. Karen's face darkened. "This is ridiculous. I was only there for a few minutes." I smiled. "Oh, really?" Click. I played a time-lapse security video showing her car parked illegally for 4 days straight. A board member shook their head. "That's a clear violation. No exceptions." Karen's hands curled into fists. She was losing. The final blow, I flipped to the last page. Unapproved construction on HOA property. Karen installed a large storage shed on community property without board approval, violating HOA guidelines. Gasps. "That's a serious violation," someone muttered. And then, the moment of truth, I held up a photo of Karen's backyard, a massive shed, clearly built without permits, sitting half on her property and half on HOA land. The board immediately reacted. "This is unacceptable," one of them snapped. "This was never approved. Karen, you know unauthorized structures aren't allowed." Karen's meltdown, Karen's face turned beet red. "This is a witch hunt," she shrieked, slamming her hands on the table. "I have dedicated my life to this community, and this is how you repay me." Nobody reacted because nobody cared. The HOA president sighed and rubbed his temples. "I think we've heard enough. Given the evidence, we are dropping all accusations against Mr. My name." I leaned back in my chair, satisfied. Then, the cherry on top. The president turned to Karen. "And we'll be issuing you a formal violation notice. You have 30 days to remove your illegal structure and correct your other violations." Karen looked like she was about to explode. "This is a setup," she shrieked. He manipulated everything." But nobody listened. Nobody cared. The aftermath. The meeting ended. Karen stormed out, muttering curses under her breath. But I noticed something. She didn't look defeated. She looked furious, and when she reached the door, she turned, locking eyes with me. "You'll pay for this," she hissed. Then she left. And I knew this wasn't over. Because people like Karen, they don't lose, they plot. And whatever she had planned next, it wasn't going to be pretty. Some people, when they lose, accept defeat and move on. Karen, she doubled down. After being publicly humiliated at the HOA meeting, you'd think she'd finally give up. But instead, she did something so insane, so blatantly illegal, that when I saw it, I actually laughed out loud. The fake eviction notice was a quiet morning when I found a thick envelope taped to my front door. Notice of eviction. 30 days to vacate at first, I thought. This has to be a mistake. Then I saw the signature. Karen Reynolds, HOA president. I burst out laughing. She wasn't even the HOA president. Karen's big mistake. I flipped through the letter. It claimed that due to my multiple violations, which had already been dismissed, the HOA had unanimously voted to revoke my home ownership rights. It demanded that I vacate my property within 30 days or face legal consequences. It even included a fake court seal, which, upon closer inspection, was literally just a blurry Google image. It was so badly done, I had to give her credit for pure audacity. But here's the thing. HOAs don't have the power to evict homeowners. They can fine you. They can take you to court if you violate community agreements, but they cannot legally remove you from a house that you own. And Karen, she had just committed fraud. Time to call in the big guns. I calmly walked inside, sat down, and dialed my lawyer. The moment I explained what had happened, there was a long pause. Then my lawyer chuckled. "Oh, she's finished." We went over every angle of the case. Forgery, because she had faked an official HOA decision. Fraud, because she had knowingly sent a false legal document. Harassment, because this was an escalation of a personal vendetta. Then my lawyer said something that made me grin. "We're not just going to shut this down, we're going to make an example out of her." Preparing for the counterattack over the next few days, I made copies of the fake eviction letter, gathered every HOA meeting recording proving that the board had never voted on this, pulled HOA bylaws explicitly stating that they do not have eviction powers, collected every single piece of evidence of Karen's harassment, her vague violations, her attempts at manipulating the board, and now this fraudulent letter. Karen thought she was being clever. What she didn't realize, she had just handed me everything I needed to destroy her, and when we finally confronted her, it was going to be brutal. Karen had tried everything to get rid of me. Fake violations, fabricated evidence, even a forged eviction notice. But what she never considered, that I was the one who could get rid of her. The emergency HOA meeting, the night of the HOA meeting, the Ito clubhouse was packed. Word had spread fast. Everyone knew something big was about to happen. Karen sat at the head of the table, her signature clipboard in hand, looking smug as ever. She thought she was still in control. She had no idea what was coming. I stood up. "I'd like to address the board." Karen rolled her eyes. "Oh, what now? If this is about your eviction, that's already been decided." I smirked. "Oh, it's definitely about my eviction." Then I pulled out the fake eviction notice and held it up for everyone to see, the evidence that destroyed her. "This," I said, "is a fraudulent eviction notice, created, signed, and sent by Karen Reynolds." A murmur spread across the room. I flipped through my files, proof that HOAs have no eviction authority, screenshots of Karen's emails showing she acted alone, legal confirmation that what she did was fraud. The board members sat stiffly in their seats. The HOA president, Richard, sighed. "Karen, is this true?" Karen turned red. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood." Richard rubbed his temples. "Karen, you can't evict homeowners. You lied to the board. You broke the law." The room erupted. "She's been making up rules for years," someone shouted. "She tried to fine me for parking in my own driveway," another neighbor added. "This community is tired of Karen," someone else muttered. That's when I dropped the final bombshell, the ultimate power move. I leaned forward. "Since we're talking about voting power, let's be transparent here." I pulled out a second document, a list of property owners, and next to my name, 10 homes. The room went silent. Karen's face drained of color. "I own 10 properties in this HOA," I said calmly, "which means I have more voting power than anyone else here." Gasps. Karen's breathing quickened. "So," I continued, "I'd like to propose a motion to remove Karen from the HOA board immediately." Richard looked around. "All in favor?" Hands shot up. 1, 2, 3. Every single hand in the room, except Karen's. Karen's meltdown. "No," she shrieked, slamming her clipboard onto the table. "This is a conspiracy. This is illegal. You can't just—" "Karen," Richard interrupted. "The vote is unanimous." Her mouth opened and closed, her face a mixture of rage and disbelief. "You can't do this to me," she screamed. "I built this HOA. I am the whore." Richard sighed. "No, Karen, you were the problem. Karen is forced to leave." The next morning, a for sale sign appeared in front of Karen's house. She had no choice. With her position gone, her influence destroyed, and her reputation in shambles, she had nothing left. Within weeks, she packed her things and disappeared. And just like that, the tyrant was gone. The aftermath, with Karen out of the picture, the HOA finally relaxed. No more insane violations. No more fake fines. No more power-hungry dictatorship. And the best part? The community finally felt like home again. As I stood on my porch, watching movers haul the last of Karen's stuff away, my neighbor walked up and smirked. "Never thought I'd say this," he said. "But thanks for taking her down." I chuckled. Someone had to do it, because in the end, people like Karen think they can control everything. But when they go too far, they end up losing it all. The end, or just the beginning. Karen may be gone, but if this story has taught me anything, HOA drama never truly dies, because somewhere out there, another Karen is waiting. And when she shows up, you'd better believe I'll be ready. Life lessons from the HOA tyrant's downfall. The power of patience, justice, and standing your ground life often places us in situations where we must choose between fighting back or letting things slide. The story of Karen's downfall is a powerful reminder that standing up for yourself, calmly, strategically, and with evidence, is the best way to handle injustice. Karen ruled through intimidation, fabricating violations, and trying to manipulate others with fake authority. But in the end, her downfall was inevitable, because power without integrity never lasts. This teaches us a valuable lesson. Those who abuse authority will always be exposed in time. Another key takeaway is the importance of knowing your rights. Many people allow themselves to be bullied simply because they assume the other person has more power. But when you educate yourself, when you understand the rules, the laws, and your own position, you can push back effectively. The homeowner in this story didn't just argue. He gathered facts, documented everything, and used the system against those who tried to manipulate it. Finally, this story is about the strength of patience and persistence. Sometimes, winning doesn't happen overnight. It requires standing firm, letting the other person dig their own grave, and waiting for the right moment to act. The best victories aren't about revenge. They're about justice. At the end of the day, truth, patience, and knowledge will always triumph over deception and abuse of power. Stand firm, stay smart, and never let a bully win.